Morning children, it's great to see you. Now we've been looking at the number 2 in the Bible over the last few weeks, and today is our last day. So I thought we'd have a little recap on the number 2s that we've looked at so far. So, week 1, we looked at 2 different types of givers. Can you remember the widow who put in her 2 little coins? And Jesus said that she had put in more than all the rich people because she had given everything that she had. And then on week 2, we looked at 2 different men who went into the temple. And only one man's prayer was heard, the tax collector's, because he prayed from the heart. The other man, he boasted, he was proud, and his prayer wasn't heard by God. And then on week 3, we learnt about 2 different types of sons. The father asked the first son to do something, and he said he wouldn't do it. But then later, he thought about it, and he did it. And the second son, he said he would do it, but he actually didn't. And we found out that true obedience is not just saying you're going to do something, it's actually doing it. Now then on week 4, we found out about a wise man and a foolish man. Jesus told the parable, didn't he? And it was all about the wise person is the person who hears what God wants them to do, and then he goes and does it. But the foolish man, he hears, but he just goes his own way. He is very, very foolish indeed. And then last week, children, we learnt about 2 men who were blind. They couldn't see at all. But when Jesus came along, he had compassion on them. He was kind and he felt sorry for them and he did something for them. He healed them so that they could see again. Now today, I've got one last story for you about the number 2. In fact, it's one of Uncle Trev's favourite stories in the Bible, so I hope you really enjoy it. Here it is. Jesus told a story about a rich man who had 2 sons. The rich man had a very big farm with many servants who looked after it. Now one day, the younger son went to his father and said, "Father, I want you to give me my share of your inheritance now. I want you to give me everything that I should get when you die." Now the father was really sad about this, but he agreed to give his rebellious son his share of the inheritance. What a lot of gold and money he would have been given. So the younger son left home and set off for another country. There he wasted all the money on wild living. He spent it all on parties and other things. But after he had spent everything, the new friends that he had made left him. Then there was a famine in the land. That means that there was no food to eat, and he was poor, with no money, no friends, and nowhere to live. He was forced to look for a job, but the only job he could find was looking after pigs. Ugh, can you imagine that? He spent many days and nights feeling very lonely and very hungry. He was so sad and miserable, he longed to eat the food that the pigs were eating. He was beginning to starve to death. At that moment, he suddenly realised how silly he had been. All of my father's servants have food, and here am I starving. I know. I will go home to my father and say, "Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I'm not good enough to be your son anymore. Please make me as one of your servants." So he got up and set off on the long journey home along the dusty roads. Now the father missed his son and always looked out for him, hoping that he would return. Then one day, while he was looking out, he could see his son a long way off coming down the road. And the father was filled with compassion for his son. He ran towards him and threw his arms around his son. "My son has come home again," he cried. Now you can imagine, the son was a bit surprised. He never expected such a welcome. He wept and he said, "Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I am not good enough to be called your son anymore." But his father called to the servants, "Quick, bring me the best clothes and sandals for my son, and let's put a ring on his finger. Then go off and kill that best calf that we have, because we're going to have a big feast tonight. We're going to have a celebration. We're going to have a party because my son has returned. My son that was dead is now alive. He was lost, but now he is found." Now sometime later, when it was starting to get dark, the older son returned to the farm after a hard day's work in the fields. He could hear all the sounds of a great party in the distance. A servant told him, "Your father is celebrating the safe return of your younger brother." The older brother was furious that his rebellious younger brother was getting such a loving welcome home. He sulked outside, so his father came out to see him. "Father, I have been working for you for many years, but you have never had a celebration feast for me. I've never had a party like this. But my brother has been behaving terribly, wasting money, and yet when he returns, you celebrate and give him a party." But the father explained, "You have always been with me, and everything I have is yours. But we are celebrating because your brother was dead and is now alive. He was lost, but now he is found." Isn't that one of the best stories ever? Now here's my challenge for you today, children. Can you work out what that parable actually means? Why not have a chat with Mum and Dad over the lunchtime today and see if you can work it out together. Now next week, Uncle Trev's starting a new series. I hope I can remember what it's about. Well, until then, it's bye from me, children. Bye.